This Rotel dip isn't your basic cheese and can of salsa recipe, no. This one is requested at every single gathering I go to, and there's a reason for it. It is loaded with crisp cooked bacon, ground beef, fresh tomatoes and jalapeños, caramelized onions, and cheese. Well, kind of. More on that in a little bit. For seriously, one of the most addicting dips you'll ever eat. Trust me. Let's start off by knocking out some prep. Sound good? Let's cook. I'm starting off by preparing some yellow onions. Now you can use white, sweet, or red. However, I'm caramelizing these and yellow onions are going to be the best flavor for that. All we want to do is small dice these until we get roughly 2 cups, which really equals about 1 medium to large size onion. Let's briefly set those to the side. Next, I'm going to smash and finely mince 3 garlic cloves. And now what I want to do is thinly julienne 8 strips of bacon. I always use smoked uncured. And in addition, I usually wash my cutting board with hot water and soap, always after cutting raw protein. Let's take our bacon over to the cooktop. I have a large 12-inch stainless steel skillet. You could also use a non-stick or even cast iron. We're going to turn the heat up to low medium, and then after heating for about 30 seconds, let's add in our bacon. Once we hear that sizzle, we know we're good. And we want to cook it until it is crispy, which takes about 8 to 10 minutes. And don't be afraid to adjust the heat. If you feel like it's cooking too quickly, just turn it down. You are in full control. Once the bacon lardons are crispy and brown like this, what we want to do is set them to the side. So I'm going to substitute out this spoon for a slotted one and just transfer all the bacon over to a medium-sized bowl. Now for the rendered bacon fat, I'm going to add it to another bowl, strain it in a few seconds, but this is fantastic to cook with or even to use in pie crust. Oh, it makes the best pie dough, I promise you. Let's return the pan to the cooktop and add in 2 tablespoons of that strained rendered bacon fat. Turn the heat up to medium-high just until it begins to smoke lightly like this. And now I'm adding in 1 pound of ground beef. Once it's in there, I immediately flatten it out, trying to cover as much surface area as possible, almost like an extra large hamburger. We are going to cook this untouched for 3 minutes. We want to create that nice brown Maillard crust underneath. And of course, you could go next level and ground up your own beef, just like in my cowboy burger recipe. After that 3-minute cooking time, we're gonna come back and break it up into smaller bite-sized pieces, ensuring it gets browned on all sides and is cooked through. I mean, we're already shaping up for this to be one of the most un-Chef Billy Parisi recipes of all time. So heck, while we're here, I recommend using 80-20 lean to fat beef. Remember, fat equals flavor. Also, for a little more beefy flavor, I recommend using ground chuck instead of ground sirloin. The ground beef is finished, looks fantastic. Let's transfer it over to the bowl with the crisp cooked bacon. And then let's return the pan over medium-high heat, add in 1 more tablespoon of strained rendered bacon fat, and now place in our onions. Once they're in there, I'm going to spread them out, give them a quick season of coarse salt, maybe a half teaspoon. Then we're going to saute for 3 to 4 minutes or until it starts to lightly brown. Now I'm turning the heat down to low medium, and we're going to cook it until well caramelized, which is going to take in between 25 and 30 minutes. And in the meantime, I know you're not going to believe this, but I am actually pulling out a slow cooker. Oh my gosh, the world has stopped spinning. However, this little device will help stop any sticking or burning. In this slow cooker, I'm adding a total of 1 pound of cream cheese. Make sure it is a full-fat cream cheese. And another first in all my recipes, I'm going to be using Velveeta. Rotel dip was actually created from the classic Mexican recipe chili con queso. However, a gentleman named Carl Rotel, who owned a canning facility, wanted to simplify the process of preparing tomatoes and chili, so he came up with Rotel. So yes, traditionally, Rotel would be the same as chili con queso using canned ingredients. And for my case, of course, I'm using fresh ingredients and then this. Velveeta. The only things I can remember about Velveeta is that it's shelf stable and this crazy commercial from the late 80s. Me and my friend taped this and watched it on repeat. We thought it was hilarious when she said cheddar ran off your plate onto your doily. Back then, I was like, what is a doily? That is the craziest word possible. All right, story time's over. We're adding the Velveeta to the slow cooker along with the cream cheese, place on a lid, turn the power on, and we want the setting to be on high. And it should only take about 15 to 20 minutes for our cheese to start melting. And Velveeta has to be probably one of the weirdest cheeses on earth, if you can even call it a cheese. And there's just something oddly good about it. Maybe it's that it melts so well, probably due to the sodium citrate, or that it's salty and it satiates your taste buds. That's why you keep wanting more of it. I'm not exactly sure, but I do know this is probably the only recipe that I actually use this in. And another substitute would be American cheese, which you can just pick up from a deli at your local grocery store. And you can also ask anyone, and I mean anyone, who's ever worked in a fine dining restaurant. When you got off your shift, you didn't want nice, amazing, delicious food like lobster or filet mignon. You're sick of cooking it. You kind of want junk like this. It's weird, but sometimes you just gotta do it. This is actually good timing because we can prep up a few other things. And remember, we're not using a can of Rotel. We're doing it from scratch. And I've got some Roma tomatoes. We want to seed these, and the best way to do it is by filleting just like this. The other way is to slice it like I do peppers by carving the flesh away from the seeds on the outside. We're going to need about 2 cups small diced or about 6 large Roma tomatoes. Set these to the side, and this is great timing to go back and check on our caramelized onions. I usually come back every 5 to 7 minutes while they're cooking on low heat. All right, back to the cutting board. I have 1 large jalapeno. You could also use 2 medium jalapenos. I'm going to slice off the end, and then I'm going to remove most of the pith and the seeds. I still want a little bit of spice. However, if you happen to love spice, use the pith and the seeds. That's where all the heat is. It's in that pith, which also transfers over to the seeds. And you could also use other chilies like habaneros if you want to get crazy. We're going to small dice these, set these to the side. Next, I want to thinly slice 1 bunch of green onions, which is going to equal about 1 cup. Then I have a small bunch of fresh cilantro, which I'm going to finely mince. I need a 1/4 cup total here. And be sure to use the stems. There's so much delicious lemon-lime flavor in these stems. Don't let them go to waste. Let's head back over to the cooktop and take a look at our onions. They look fantastic, nice and golden brown. Be sure to try some. Don't forget to taste things throughout the cooking process so that it's much more enjoyable. Let's add in our 3 finely minced cloves of garlic. You know the deal. Once you can smell it, it's done cooking, which only takes in between 30 and 45 seconds. Now there's a lot of goodness still in this pan, and because everything's transferring over to the slow cooker, I want to release it. So what I'm going to do is just add in 3 tablespoons of beef stock. Water works great as well. We want to scrape up all that fond, all that deliciousness. That's just going to add that much more flavor to this dip. Once all that tastiness is removed from the pan and the liquid is absorbed, let's transfer it over to our medium-sized bowl with the cooked beef and bacon. And you know what? I want it all. I'm swapping out for a rubber spatula to make sure I get all of it. Let's take this over to the slow cooker, add it in there. You can see the cheese has started to melt. Great. Let's also add in our fresh tomatoes and jalapenos. Let's give it a mix to incorporate all the ingredients, but we're gonna need to cook it for a little bit longer to make sure the cheese has completely melted. So add on a lid and let it stand for 10 to 15 minutes. After that amount of time, let's come back, have a look. The cheese is melted, looks great. And now for my next trick, I like to add in a darker ale beer. You can actually use any beer here. And if you don't want any alcohol, you can swap this out for a little lemon or lime Perrier, no problem. I'm adding in a 1/2 cup. Next, I'm gonna squeeze in the juice of 1 lime to help brighten up the dip a little bit. Now I'm adding in our sliced green onions and chopped cilantro. Let's fold the ingredients together until combined. And does this Rotel chili con queso Chef Billy Parisi concoction dip look and smell so good. And it's funny because I actually created this recipe about 15 years ago. A good friend of mine from college was having a football party and wanted to spice up a basic Rotel, Velveeta, and a can of Rotel. So I did a little bit of testing and digging, and this is what I came up with. I sent him the recipe, he made it. He was like, dude, this is ridiculous, and it is. And it still goes back to these simple, fundamental, classic techniques, even when making a simple recipe like this, because it makes amazing food and always the best memories. This will be talked about after parties for years. All right, here's how I plate it up. Now, it's actually a great idea to serve this right in the crock pot because it can help keep it warm and keep the cheese melted. However, I'm going to pour several ladlefuls right into a large bowl. Then I'm going to garnish with an additional sliced green onions and chopped fresh cilantro. And you can serve this up with whatever you want, but I prefer tortilla chips and carrot and celery bâtonnets. Oh, I love this stuff. And hey, sometimes you just have to splurge. You have to do it. Don't worry, you can start that diet in a few days. It's all good, because if you make this, it could make you all famous. Yeah, it's that Good. I hope you and your family and friends really dig it. And if you love appetizers, check out my bacon wrapped shrimp, my spinach and artichoke dip, and my brie and crew, all wrapped up in one recipe video. So good. I'll see you on there.